Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dudes and dudettes. It is Wednesday, 18th of December. Hope you're having a good start to the morning. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. As always, it's FPL talk here. Part 19. 19 of the 19 parts. Wow. We got some news this morning that I will share with you, fantasy Premier League wise. As always, I'm on the socials. Let's get those out of the way. I'm on Facebook, AJP85-channel. I'm on X, AJ1985P. I'm on Twitch, A_J_P_8_5. And obviously on YouTube, AJ Hardy 85. Check it out, guys. Like, subscribe, and follow, and we will be special friends. Yes, we will. Don't forget to comment and message, and we'll have a chat all things fantasy Premier League and fantasy in general, football stuff as well. We'll talk about that also. As always, guys, I will share my wonderful screen with you, wonderful people out there, and we will go for it straight off the bat. Now, the first thing we will look at is what's going on in the world of the Premier League and football in general. Lots of news, lots of sort of whispers and things in the background, isn't there? The one thing that I've posted about on X is Rashford is potentially leaving Manchester United, isn't he? Barcelona leading the way for his signature at the moment. Could be a January transfer, could be a summer transfer for him. I've read some news this morning also about Juventus and Arsenal looking at a potential swap deal. Gabriel Jesus potentially going out to Juventus. They're probably looking at swapping. Well, they probably won't do it, to be honest. It would be lovely if we do get Vlahovic as part of that swap. I think Gabriel Jesus, when he joined Arsenal along with Zinchenko, we thought, wow, they're getting two pretty decent players in Manchester City at Arsenal. This could kickstart our chance to lead the league and win the league potentially as well. But it hasn't really been phenomenal for Jesus. He's a brilliant player, but he's more of a, back to goal poetry kind of player. Arsenal need more of a, a player who's going to hold up the ball, a target man style thing. And Vlahovic at Juventus would be great. I know Arsenal have been looking at Vlahovic for many, many years now, scouted him quite a bit as well. So, yeah, I think he was back in Fiorentina when he was back at the previous club. We were looking at him as well. Another player we were looking at as well, but Man United were also looking at Osimhen. Saw some news about that. He's obviously over in Turkey right now on loan, isn't he? I think it's Galatasaray, isn't he? He's on loan too, but they've got no buy option really, so it's literally just a straight loan over there, and they'll be back at Napoli. So be interested to see what happens with that. Manager-wise, the big carousel on the weekend. Lopetegui did okay, did well, didn't he, against Bournemouth, where they drew 1-1 on Monday. So Lopetegui lives another week, doesn't he, really, in that sense? So maybe a bit longer. But again, have West Ham started to, go on the incline? Have they a little bit? Are they going up a little bit? They've done okay in the past few games, haven't they? Bowen and Kudus looked like a brilliant pair, and we knew from last season how good they were, but this season they look really, really good as well. So yeah, maybe they're on the incline. But the merry-go-round of managers has already happened, hasn't it? We've lost O'Neill in the league, and we've lost Russell Martin. Wolves and Southampton getting rid of their managers. Wolves are immediately turned to Vitor Pereira. I posted that on X the other day as well. He is the new man. Does that now mean that Wolves' assets are going to be more, interesting? Some of them are going to target, or because obviously they did well under O'Neill, could there be a drop off potentially? Obviously, Pereira is Portuguese manager. He was in Saudi Arabia, wasn't he? He's moved back over here to take over at Wolves. He's been at Porto Olympiacos. So it'll be interesting to see how he does. He's got a lot of Portuguese players. See the link there to work with at Wolves. So it's like when Espirito Santo was there, isn't it? It's that same kind of principle, really. Are we going to see more Wolves find more Portuguese players? Again, they do already have Cunha, Guedes. Cunha's obviously Brazilian, but he speaks Portuguese. Guedes as well as there. He's Portuguese international. Jose Sá as well. So lots of players really in that team that are able to communicate with Vitor Pereira if he goes in. As for the guys over at Southampton, they're looking at some interesting players. I saw Humland the other day, the ex-Denmark manager, if you remember when Eriksson had that horrible situation, and he collapsed. He was the manager at the time, wasn't he, Humland? So he's a possible candidate for the Southampton role. Rawl as well over at Sheffield Wednesday, I think it is interested in, and Corberan at West Brom. Those are the three potential managers for Southampton. It'd be interesting to see who they go for, actually, and what that does to fantasy assets over at Saints. We talk about Armstrong, we talk about Archer as the attacking players. Midfield-wise, Dibbling is the big one, isn't he, really, that everyone are looking at. To be honest with you, bring him in because he's cheap at 4.5 million, as opposed to he's going to be great under the next manager, don't you, really? The defence-wise, Harwood Bellis, maybe Walker Peters, resurgence from him. Bednarek is obviously one of the defenders as well. Sagabara is another one as well. Sugabara, like his name is, the defender. And then obviously Ramsdale, the goalkeeper, is the sort of defensive side of things. So it'll be interesting to see who comes in for Southampton and how they play. A lot of people already have Southampton assets just because they're cheap enablers, aren't they, really? The defenders in Harwood Bellis. Ramsdale's dropped to 4.4 million is on fantasy, so he's a player that people potentially have for a cheapish goalkeeper. Obviously, Fabianski is better in terms of that 4 to 4.5 million pound bracket. So yeah, you probably got that. And in terms of forwards, maybe you've got Archer as an enabler. Maybe you've got Armstrong. Now he's gone down in price slightly. Or maybe you've got Stewart, who's their other striker. He's 4.5, I think 4.4, 4.5 million at the moment on fantasy. Maybe you've got Dibbling as that 4.5 million midfielder, that sort of fifth midfielder slot. So be interested to see what they do. So Wolves assets. Now, the reason I'm talking a little bit about this is because I mentioned this previously. What does this mean now for this assistant manager chip that we're going to get? Yeah, this assistant manager chip's upon us. It will be here after the new year, something for it to look at and potentially use. They've already mentioned, the guys over at the Premier League have already mentioned that 0.5 million will be the cheapest manager you can buy, all the way up to 1.5 million. So you need to have the budget for it, really. You need to make sure you don't have several players from that team in which you plan to bring the manager in from. You can only have 3, whether it's players or assistant manager. 3 is the maximum from a club. So something to factor in heavily, that is. So there you go. We'll have a little look at the rest of the news really quickly and how that affects Fantasy Premier League. Big thing about Amad Diallo potentially signing a new contract. All Manchester United at the moment, lots about Brentford here. Remember, people, it is a semi-big day today. It is, after all, Carabao Cup Day, or the Football League Cup, isn't it, really, that we called it back in the day. So fairly decent fixtures today. I will have a quick look at those so you guys can see how that might affect the fantasy side of things. Now, it's a question of whether these players and teams play their full team or whether they have any of the first 11 in these games. Arsenal have Crystal Palace at 7:30. They're at the Emirates in this quarter-final match. So obviously with Arsenal, it's eyes on the goalkeeper side of things. Are they going to swap Raya out? Then there's the eyes on the defence side of things. Are we going to see a back 4 of the standard? Though Calafiori's been out. Saliba, Gabriel, and Julian Timber. Are we going to see any of those 3 feature in midfield? Are we going to see Odegaard play? We're going to see Declan Rice play. Are we going to see those sort of 2 essentially are the main players, aren't they? Or the main first 11. And then maybe Partey as well. Is he going to play? And then on the wings, are we going to see Saka? Are we going to see Martinelli start? Or are we going to see a flip in maybe Raheem Sterling and Trossard? I think that'll probably be the likely outcome on the wings. And then up front, Havertz has been playing there predominantly, hasn't he? But maybe we'll see Gabriel Jesus today instead against Crystal Palace. For Crystal Palace, the obvious players, Henderson in goal. Is he going to start for them? It's a big match, to be fair, for Crystal Palace. And it's a fairly biggish match for Arsenal, Crystal Palace are, after all, a good Premier League side. They've done quite well of late. So maybe they'll start a few players from the first 11. So maybe Henderson might start. Gahey, their main centre-half, might play. Munoz is a big player, isn't he, defensively for Crystal Palace in terms of attacking outputs and points. Maybe we might see Ismail Assar today as well for them. I don't know if Eze is fit, but maybe him as well. Up front, is it going to be Mateta potentially to play? So there's lots of question marks, really, on how these teams are going to handle their first 11 because it is a quarter-final. Everyone has a Premier League team they're playing. So it's Premier League matches technically, albeit, not a Premier League game. The teams from the Premier League, so Arsenal, Crystal Palace, be interested to see what happens in that game. Newcastle take on Brentford at 7:45. Again, all eyes on what team they put out, really. And we're going to see Lewis Hall, maybe even the goalkeeper Pope's out for a while, isn't it? So it's probably going to be Dubravka. But yeah, we're going to see Burn maybe. Botman, by the way, played the other day. That's an interesting shout there. Botman, 4.4 million Newcastle. Him and Burn are the cheapest way into that defence at the moment, with Livramento and Lewis Hall going up in price quite a bit. So yeah, if you're trying to get in on the Newcastle bandwagon, if they start showing signs of consistency, Botman is back, and he was a good player. You know, when he played last season alongside Fabian Schär, they were solid. So something to keep an eye on. Will we see those two? Chances are we'll see Harvey Barnes stay rather than Anthony Gordon. So that's a likelihood. Will we see Guimaraes probably on the bench, or maybe he'll play because he's the captain main man, isn't he, really? Maybe Sandro Tonali will come in for him. And then the big questions up front. Everyone, I say a level, I don't, but a lot of people have Isak, don't they, up front? Are we going to see him today against Brentford, really? We'll see. They are at home. They're at St James's Park. Brentford, the assets from Brentford, essentially the goalkeeper Flecken is the big one. A lot of people have got him as their main goalkeeper. Defence, really, Van der Berg was a player that they brought in on the cheap, isn't he? He's 4 million, 4.1 now, isn't he? To be interested to see how if he plays, maybe. Rico Henry, I think he's still working fitness, so he might play potentially if he's got any kind of fitness in that sense. Sort of midfield side of things, are we looking at Sade? Is he going to play? And Mbeumo, is he going to get any point? That's a big player for Brentford. He might play today because remember it is Newcastle. They are away, so you know you want your best players essentially. Up front, are we going to see Johan Wissa? Is he going to play as well? My man, who I have from Brentford, he might get a couple of minutes or may even start the match, may even play the full match. Bearing in mind though, there are fixtures on the weekend, Premier League fixtures, so we will see what Thomas Frank does with Brentford. And then the final match this evening is Southampton versus Liverpool. Managerless at the moment, and they've got caretaker manager who's took over. He's the assistant, I think he's at the moment, but caretaker, he's taken over Southampton for a game or two whilst they sort out the managerial options. So it'd be interesting to see who Southampton play. They might just play a full team, or they might just say, look, it's Carabao Cup, we've got to the quarterfinals. It's against a big team like Liverpool, who are probably going to put out a half-decent side. So, you know, even Liverpool's second team are pretty good. So you might say Southampton might just play second string. So you're looking at Ramsdale, I think, still out, but you know, whether they're going to play Bednarek and probably will, Harwood Bellis, Walker Peters, whether they're going to play Dibbling, whether they're going to play Archer and Armstrong up front. It'd be interesting to see what they do at St Mary's. But Liverpool will go there believing they can get a victory. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but I don't hate to say it, let's be honest. Southampton have been a bit of a whipping team this season, haven't they, really? So Liverpool will fancy their chances away in Southampton. So even if they play the second string, Kelleher goals, solid, isn't it, really? If they play Bradley, for example, if they play Gomez on the other side, if they play Kwanzaa in defence, maybe Endo will come into play in that team. Curtis Jones might play as a backup. These are the backup players I'm mentioning here. And attacking wise, they've got so much talent, haven't they, really? I don't think Jota's going to make it, but they might just play Luis Diaz, Nunez. Might rest Salah. I expect Salah to be rested, to be honest with you, for the weekend. So, yeah, I think they'll play a pretty strong team. They'll probably win fairly comfortably, and that, I think, will be the outcome of that game. So I reckon Arsenal will scrape through tonight. Newcastle will go through, and Liverpool this evening will be the Carabao Cup next round place teams. Now, the big news. We have about 10 or 15 minutes left of this part, and I will get straight into it. I'll give you the big news. I didn't want to go with it straight away. I wanted to keep you excited. You might have seen on the actual title of this particular part that a new signing has occurred in my fantasy team. Now, for weeks, I've been toying over whether to start Jorginho Rutter or whether to start Morgan Rogers. Every week, having an eye, I've been thinking, unfortunately, the past few times, I think I called it one week, but the past few times, I didn't do so well. So I thought, do you know what? It's time for a change. It is. And I jumped on the bandwagon, ladies and gentlemen. I did. And I got rid of Jorginho Rutter. So I got rid of Jorginho Rutter. You guys are welcome to guess who you think I brought in. I'll give you 2 seconds to guess who you think I've swapped him for. Yes, as I said, bandwagon was a bit of a giveaway, wasn't it, really? I brought in Amad Diallo. I did indeed. I brought him in. I looked at his form. I looked at his history. I looked at the minutes played, and bar Arsenal, he has been pretty much a 90-minute. Whether that carries on, we will see. Obviously, there's lots of fixtures coming up thick and fast during the festive period. up to Christmas and even after that. So we'll see what happens. But basically, the game against Manchester United blew my mind. He was so good. Dynamic in the end, wasn't he, really? He created that resurgence and got them basically with the equaliser, and the winning goal was just delicious. Prior to that against Forest, he got an assist as well. Didn't do a great deal against Arsenal in 45 minutes, but then again against Everton, he got 2 assists. Against Ipswich, he got an assist, which was good. In Leicester, he got an assist. So you look at the last games from 11 all up to 16, and he was a man I was always looking at. I did mention him a few times previously, and I decided to jump on it. Yes, he's 5.1. I got him at 5.1 in case you were wondering. He's now 5.2. He is also predicted to potentially go up again. So I'm going to make money on Amad Diallo. The flip side to that, I got rid of Jorginho Rutter, so I've lost my Brighton asset, who hasn't been the greatest in the past few weeks. On top of that, also, his price dropped straight after I got rid of him. So I got rid of him, brought in Amad Diallo. Amad Diallo's price went up, and Jorginho Rutter's price went down. It wouldn't have affected me massively, but he's basically back to 5.5, which is the price I paid for Jorginho Rutter. He's obviously there if I ever need him again in the future. What that has done by bringing Amad Diallo, it's given me a few more million or 0.1 to work with. Not million, a few 0.1 by having him at 5.1 and getting rid of a 5.5 player, that gave me 0.4 million to work with. Now, Amad Diallo might go up again in price. So if anything happens with him, if he stops playing, if he doesn't get many minutes, if his points drop off a cliff and he starts getting poor points, then at least I might make some pennies on him and bring back a player who is playing frequently. So as you can see there, one of the main reasons I brought Amad Diallo in is because of his history from game week 11 all the way up to game week 16. He has been pretty consistent, hasn't he? 6, 8, 11, 1, 5, 13. Now, if he can keep playing, that would be great. Obviously, the issues with Marcus Rashford help a tiny bit. I think Rashford will still get his chances, but it helps a tiny bit that there's, he's questioning his future. He's looking for a new challenge. That might make Amad Diallo more of a guaranteed starter on that right side. The other problems we've got is Garnacho, although he plays both sides. Anthony, again, he plays occasionally or comes on. Didn't affect Amad Diallo's minutes. Now, what I'm hoping happens is Amorim sees the potential in Amad Diallo to play him further up in a winging position. That's why he performed so well against Man City. I'm hoping that proved it in that match. The reason I say it is because Amad Diallo has been put at right wing back previously for Manchester United, and whilst he got an assist in the game that he was right wing back, you would say he was fairly good, but lucky-ish to get that. Aside from that opportunity, he wouldn't have really done much. But you push him forward, and he shows what he can do in the rest of the matches. In Manchester City, he was electric. He was pretty much man of the match. There's no two ways about it. He was really, really good in that game. So that's half the reason why I'm doing it. The other half the reason, Brighton's fixtures are decent. Jorginho Rutter hasn't been getting involved as much, although in the last game he was put behind the front man. I think it was João Pedro. So he played in a sort of supportive shadow striker role in that game. But, in that role, you expect him to do well, don't you really? If Brighton are going to score or get involved, you expect an assist or a goal from someone who's playing in such a position. Maybe I'm expecting too much from him. But he didn't deliver for the past few weeks, so he's gone. 5.5 million, midfielder out for a 5.1. Fixtures coming up for Manchester United are good as well. Against Bournemouth, okay, they're a good team, but if Man United are going to do anything, I think Amad Diallo is going to be involved in it. Wolves, again, they are about to bring in a new manager, so then we'll see how they go. But that managerial bounce will be the next match, and hopefully not the one against Manchester United. They have Newcastle, so Newcastle is solid, but United are at home technically, so anything could happen on that one. Big match against Liverpool, maybe. Amad Diallo did really well against Manchester City, so he might do well against Liverpool as well, although that is at Anfield. And then we hit a nice patch of fixtures after that, don't we, really? Southampton, where they could do something against them. Brighton, they could potentially do something against them at home. Fulham are a decent side, but United can score, and Amad Diallo could be involved as well. Crystal Palace is solid, but they are at home, Manchester United, in that game. And then we get to Spurs, where I think Spurs are Spurs. They could easily concede or win by 4-0. So, yeah, they're away at the Tottenham Hotspur ground on that day. But otherwise, Everton, Ipswich. So the fixtures for the rest of the season are nice-ish. They're kind to Manchester United within reason. So the way I look at it is Amad Diallo is a safe shout. He's on 7.6 form, which is good. He gets about 4.6 points a match, which is good as well. He's got 65 points in total, and he has 8 bonus points in total. And 11% of people have signed him up, and that's pretty much testament if you look over at the transfers in. So obviously this guy has steadily got a few transfers in, which got into 5.1 in the first place. People saw that. Now I wanted to really wait to see if he'd do more against Manchester City. That wasn't just a sort of purple patch he was going through. It was a good purple patch. The mere fact that he did what he did against Manchester City, it made my ears prick up, and a lot of people go, okay, now is the time to bring him in. I think, he's probably going to go up again in price. That is testament to the price predictor on here as well. If you have a look, he's predicted to go up tomorrow. So that is something to factor in if you are thinking about getting him in before he goes to 5.3. Then we slowly start to get 5.5 million mark, don't we? And I'm not saying that you question whether Amad Diallo is worth it at 5.5, because even though he's cheap, but you could get him at 5.2 and have a couple of point millions to work with in that sense. So if you're bringing him in, now is the good time to do so. So let's have a quick look before we end today's part at what's going on with the price predictor. So we will look mainly at those players going up tonight. I will have a look at the tomorrow ones a bit later with you guys. But as it stands right this second, if you haven't already, get Isak. Apparently he's going up tonight. So someone to jump on in terms of replacement for Haaland, if you've got him in your team, or another player in and around the 9 million mark, 8.5 million mark. If you've got the cash, bring in Isak. He's the man to go. Kadioglu is going to go down for Brighton this evening, so he's going to probably drop to 4.4 if the algorithm allows it. Winks is potentially going to go down, but he's been going down for a couple of days now and hasn't. Sangare is potentially going to go down tonight, so we're going to potentially get 4.3 million midfielder. If he does go down, we're going to get 4.4 in Winks, and we're going to get a 4.4 defender in Kadioglu. But the big man, Isak, is apparently going to go up. That's right. If we have a quick look over at Reddit, and I do like to look at Reddit and some of the articles as well to help me out with what's happening. There's a lot of talk about players that are coming in. The price changes, though, will go straight to tonight, today, and yesterday, should we say, into today. This is what has happened on fantasy. We have a riser in Saliba. William Saliba's gone up to 6.3 million because of his recent performances and obviously his goals in Gabriel's absence. Gabriel is back in the centre defence, so therefore you might see just the 6 pointers and maybe the occasional bonus points for Saliba as opposed to goal scoring points. Essentially, I don't think he's going to get maybe an assist if you're lucky. Fallers wise, we were talking about him earlier. Gabriel Jesus has gone down to 6.7 million. He's owned by 0.9% of people versus Saliba's 30.1. There you go. 0.9% of people. And to be honest with you, if rumours are to believe, he is potentially going for Vlahovic at Juventus. House doesn't really play much as a Courtney House for Villa. He's now on 3.9 million, very much a backup style player. He's now owned by 0.5% of people, so that is what it is. News in that Rodgers has gone down. Aston Villa's centre midfielder or attacking midfielder, that's Morgan Rodgers. He has dropped to 5.3 today. He is now owned by 19.9% of people, Rodgers, and that is because his form is very much up and down, isn't it, really? Some games he's involved, but he doesn't do much of it. They don't score, and he gets next to no points, your twos, your threes, maybe even somewhere around that scoreline. And then you get the odd game where he just scores, isn't it, really? With Villa having Manchester City next, well, anyone can score against Manchester City at the moment. That's what we're seeing. Will he? Maybe. Unlikely. So people are holding on to him potentially because of that reason. He does have a decent form in 3.2, but it's not the greatest, essentially. So Morgan Rodgers has dropped today to 5.3 million if you are monitoring the prices. And finally, Everson, so the goalkeeper from Leicester City, he's dropped to 3.9 million. He's got 0.5% owners. I'm assuming those 0.5% owners are thinking back in time, aren't they, in nostalgic purposes, and when him and Ward, remember the Everson Ward goalkeeper combo that you could get a few seasons ago when Leicester were in the Premier League. That was dreamy, wasn't it? That you could have it terrible points wise, but dreamy in general, wasn't it? When you could have that next to nothing spent on the goalkeepers and spend the rest of the money elsewhere. Oh, look, someone's even commented it. There you go. See, we're on the same page. The Ward Everson double up. There you go. So people already commented about that side of things as well. So there you go. That's what's going on in the Reddit fantasy side of things. Lots of people asking questions. Things about Van Nistelrooy. It'd be interesting. The thing I think about, the reason that drew my attention is I'm thinking more about the managers. The assistant manager chip. Is Van Nistelrooy going to be a 0.5 million? If he is, maybe the Leicester are the team to target in that sense as well. Is Vitor Pereira at Wolves going to be a 0.5 million manager? Be interested to see what they've had to do with that, because obviously with the managers being sacked, O'Neill and Martin, they haven't yet announced the manager for Southampton and agreed one. They have potentially done it for Wolves in Pereira. So it'd be interesting to see what happens really with that side of things. So yeah, lots of things to look at. Price change evaluation. So this is just going over what's happened really and who's been brought in. I use for my one, as you can see already, the price predictor here, which is Fantasy Football Fix, which is pretty good. And that sort of gives me everything I need to sort of see really in terms of what's going to happen. It's been pretty consistent in that sense as well. So those are the Carabao Cup fixtures for today. I will quickly mention tomorrow's big game. I've put that already on X as well. Tottenham Hotspur versus Manchester City. We spoke about it a minute ago. It will be interesting to see whether they put out first team players as well. Spurs, Brennan Johnson didn't start the match last game, so he might start against Manchester United, along with maybe a few of the other first team. Forster will more than likely start in goal as well. Defence, I'm very much interested to know what's happening with their defence, because obviously I have Dragusin from Spurs at the moment still in centre half. I think I've got another week or two out of him before he might get benched for potentially Romero and Van de Ven if they come back. Also, Ben Davies is due back from injury in a couple of weeks' time. So something to keep an eye on. Manchester United-wise, will they play Amad Diallo? Will they play Højlund? Will they play Bruno Fernandes? Will they keep Onana in goal? Who's going to be in defence? Well, probably Lenny Yoro might start because he was benched in the previous game. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that one. Maybe Malacia playing as well. So yeah, maybe Mason Mount. So definitely worth looking at that one. That my eyes will be on that match at 8 o'clock on Thursday. Tottenham Hotspur versus Man United at the Tottenham Hotspur ground and stadium. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in that game, who plays. So all eyes on those two fixtures. So tonight is Carabao Cup. It is indeed some fairly decent fixtures for you to watch. Tomorrow has the big one, in my opinion, Spurs versus United. Otherwise, ladies and gents, as always, thanks for watching. Speak to me, speak to you guys, and speak to me as well on social media. Send some comments, send some messages. We'll have a chat about all things fantasy as always. But otherwise, join me, ladies and gents, at 2:30 this afternoon for the next part 20, and we will discuss some more news as well. Thank you for watching as always, ladies and gents. I've been AJ. You've been awesome.